In November 1274, 900 ships appeared off the coast of Japan, not metaphorically, 900 actual ships, carrying 30,000 soldiers, filling the horizon from one end to the other. And on those ships was the most dangerous military force on Earth, the Mongol Empire, the same army that had already swept across China, Central Asia, Persia, and Eastern Europe, the army that no kingdom had ever stopped. Japan had maybe 10,000 men to defend the beach. Every commander on that shore looked at those ships and reached the same conclusion: fall back, regroup, survive. One man looked at those ships and charged. He wasn't a general. He had no famous name. He commanded maybe 5 soldiers, and he left behind something that historians are still studying 750 years later. This is his story. His name was Takezaki Suenaga, a low-ranking samurai warrior from a province called Higo on the southern Japanese island of Kyushu. To understand why he did what he did, you need to understand how Japan worked at the time. The emperor existed, but he was mostly ceremonial. A symbol sitting in the ancient capital of Kyoto. The real power belonged to the shogunate, a military government based in the city of Kamakura. Think of it as a prime minister who holds all the actual authority, while the king exists in name only. In 1274, the man running that military government was a regent named Hojo Tokimune. He was 23 years old, and he had just made a decision that guaranteed war. Kublai Khan, grandson of Genghis Khan, ruler of the largest empire in history, had sent diplomats to Japan with a simple message: submit, pay tribute, or be conquered. Tokimune's response was to have those diplomats executed. Japan would not kneel, which meant Japan now had to fight. For a warrior like Suenaga, this moment carried something beyond duty. It carried opportunity. In 13th century Japan, a samurai's entire future, land, rank, his family's security, depended on one thing: being seen fighting bravely. The system was brutally simple. If a witness of sufficient rank observed your valor and reported it to the shogunate, you got rewarded. If no one saw you, or no one reported it, you got nothing. Suenaga himself would later put it plainly, in his own words: other than advancing and having my deeds known, I have nothing else to live for. He traveled from Higo to the front with that hunger burning. He had no idea what was waiting for him. The Mongol force that came ashore at Hakata Bay was unlike anything the Japanese had ever encountered. Japanese battle tradition at the time had a ritual quality. Warriors would announce their name and lineage before engaging an opponent. Combat was personal, almost ceremonial, with honor baked into the process itself. The Mongols had zero interest in any of that. They advanced in tight coordinated formations, shields locked together, releasing volleys of arrows in synchronized waves. And then came something that genuinely had no name in the Japanese language: iron and ceramic shells packed with gunpowder, hurled by catapult into the Japanese lines. Explosive bombs. Contemporary accounts describe soldiers frozen, not from cowardice, but from pure confusion at a sound and a force that nothing in their training had prepared them for. Horses panicked. Formations broke apart. Hakata burned. The Japanese fought back with everything they had, but they were being systematically overwhelmed by an army that had spent decades engineering exactly this kind of total shock. And this is where Suenaga did the thing that defines him. His commander gave the order to pull back. Suenaga refused. His exact words, preserved in the scrolls he would later commission: waiting for the general will cause us to be late to battle. Of all the warriors of the clan, I, Suenaga, will be the first to fight from Higo. He rode forward into the Mongol lines, ahead of his own unit, with a handful of men beside him. It did not go cleanly. Suenaga took arrow wounds. His horses were struck. His men suffered heavy losses. At one point, he was surrounded and on the edge of being completely overrun. What saved him was another warrior named Shiraishi Michiyasu, who arrived with the reinforcements at exactly the right moment. Suenaga survived. The position held, barely, but across the bay, the broader picture was grim. Japanese defenders were being pushed steadily backward. The Mongol advance was not stopping. The Japanese commanders made a hard call: retreat inland, stop giving the Mongols open ground, deny them the conditions where their formations dominated. It was the right decision, but it felt, to men like Suenaga, like losing. That night, the Mongol fleet sat anchored in the bay. Thousands of soldiers still aboard those ships. More could come ashore at dawn. But here is where the historical record gets complicated. And this matters, because the popular story gets it wrong. The Mongol generals that night were dealing with their own problems. Their commander, Liu Fuxiang, had been shot in the face by a retreating samurai and was seriously wounded. The troops were exhausted. There were fears of night ambush. The generals debated and ultimately decided to pull the forces back onto the ships to rest. While the fleet was repositioning, a storm hit. It damaged ships and killed soldiers. But historians now debate how decisive it actually was. The withdrawal may have already been happening before the storm, driven by military exhaustion and leadership breakdown as much as weather. Either way, the fleet turned back toward Korea. Japan had survived, but not purely through divine weather. The defenders had absorbed the shock, held the beach, and made the invasion costly enough that the Mongols chose not to push through the night. And then came the part nobody talks about. Suenaga had fought. He had bled. He had defied direct orders to be the first into battle. Exactly what the system required for a reward. He received nothing. This wasn't cruelty. It was a structural failure. The entire reward system was built around offensive war. You pay warriors with land seized from a defeated enemy. This had been a defensive war. No territory was captured. No land to redistribute. The government simply had no framework for compensating men who had held the line. Months passed. His petitions went unanswered. The machinery of Kamakura moved slowly, focused on the certainty that Kublai Khan would try again. So, Suenaga did something that required more guts than the charge itself. He sold his horses and his saddles, a samurai's most prized possessions, to fund the journey. Then he traveled the entire length of Japan to Kamakura on his own, walked into the government offices, and demanded to be heard. He brought witnesses. He brought a detailed account of everything he had done. He did not apologize for taking up their time. He argued his case with the precision of a man who had mentally catalogued every moment of his service. After appealing personally to a senior official named Adachi Yasumori, it worked. His service was certified. He was awarded land in Higo province, a fully equipped horse, and recognition from the shogunate. It wasn't just personal. It proved that the fight to be seen was worth having. 7 years later, Kublai Khan returned. The second invasion force made the first look small. Over 4,000 ships, somewhere around 140,000 soldiers, launched in 2 separate fleets from Korea and southern China simultaneously. By scale, it was one of the largest seaborne invasions in recorded history, a category only exceeded centuries later by D-Day. But Japan was not the same country. After 1274, the shogunate had constructed a stone defensive wall stretching nearly 20 kilometers along the coastline of Hakata Bay. Built specifically from the lessons of that first battle, it blocked the beach landings where Mongol formations had dominated. Japanese warriors developed small, fast boats to raid the anchored fleet at night, keeping the invaders exhausted and off balance. The battle stretched on for weeks. Then a typhoon hit. It destroyed a massive portion of the fleet. Ships were sunk, smashed against the coast, driven out to open sea. Tens of thousands of soldiers were lost. The survivors withdrew. The Japanese called those storms kamikaze, divine winds, and that name captured something real about how they experienced it. But the typhoon landed on a battle Japan was already not losing. The wall, the raids, the refusal to break, all of it mattered before the storm ever arrived. In 1293, Takezaki Suenaga commissioned illustrated scrolls depicting his own battles, painted by artists working from his personal accounts, preserved in detail that no official record matched. Those scrolls still exist. They sit today in the Museum of the Imperial Collections in Tokyo. They are among the most important primary sources for medieval Japanese military history. Not because a government ordered them made, but because one low-ranking warrior refused to let his story disappear. He said it himself. Other than advancing and having my deeds known, I have nothing else to live for. He meant every word. History remembers the conquerors, Alexander, Caesar, Genghis Khan. It remembers them because they won, and winning leaves monuments. But history is also made by the people who stood in the path of those conquerors and did not move, whose names survive not in records of conquest, but in something quieter. A stone wall built along a bay, a petition filed in a government office, a set of painted scrolls kept in a museum. Takezaki Suenaga was not a legend when he rode onto that beach. He was a man with 5 soldiers, a hunger to matter, and the stubbornness to fight twice, once with a sword and once with words, until someone finally wrote it down. 750 years later, we're still talking about him. That is what real warriors leave behind. Not invincibility, not myth, just the record, stubborn, specific, and honest, that they were there.